All right. So for our first kind of the business problem that we are trying to find is how to predict a movie's success, basically, through previous data through movies. So I kind of gave a prediction that an actor, a budget, or a director is a good indication of uh, how well a movie is going to do. Actors seem to a lot of people watch for actors, and then directors usually makes a good movie. They usually always makes good movies, and then the budget kind of also like if a high quality budget or high amount budget, usually they spend much more money and resources trying to make the movie look good. And then, all right, so kind of like some findings here. The IMDb score is kind of most correlated with the number of voted users, with kind of following with like critic reviews and user reviews, which is kind of like a given for a score. Um, yeah, and these are kind of just some how to predict, kind of like most frequent score, like what a lot of the so you can tell a lot of movies average around a 6 to 7. Uh, kind of most frequent reviews, duration of movies, user reviews, and then like likes on a movies page, basically. And I compare the data. Kind of just these ones are unnecessary. If you go back up to the heat map, they're kind of like really negative. They don't really have a lot of positive value to them. So we just take them out, and then just got oh yeah, and then filled all the NAs. So I didn't want to remove as or keep as much data as I could possible. Uh, Made it easier to type, and then did some other stuff. Kind of like, all right, so kind of like the main findings here. So like, the United States kind of has the most uh movies in the top 5,000. And then kind of what surprised me was that even though the only 3,800 movies are from the U.S., there's still about 4,700 movies worldwide. So that means that usually movies are prepared more for an English audience. Uh, yeah, and then kind of like directors, like how many movies the directors have made that are in the top 5,000. You can see there's a lot of directors that are movies that don't even have a director listed, but it's kind of pretty even. Steven Spielberg seems to have the most movies, and this is kind of like movies with a budget over $100 million. As you see, the United States has about 265 movies that had a budget over $1 million, with the UK, all that, and then very little after that. Yeah, it's a lot. And then like yeah, then the top 5 movies that grossed the most, which is Avatar, Titanic, Jurassic World, yeah, which is kind of not surprising, but let me see. And all right, then, to regression. Yeah, here we go. So for multiple regression, you can see that our R squared is actually fairly low. This basically implies that uh, it's not very close to our index. It doesn't work well. Like the data we gave it doesn't work well with IMDb score. Uh, oops. Lasso is very similar. It's still 0.26, which again is really low. And F regression is a little lower than that with 0.23. So this kind of shows that the data that we gave it doesn't really uh, fit well with IMDb score. It doesn't show what is it goes back. Classification. Let's see, yeah. All right. So how I did it for the mapping, I just turned the IMDb score from a float to an int. Replaced all this, or well, the int was to make it so they would round up all the numbers, and then replace the numbers with ones and zeros to equal good score, bad score. Then did all my dummy variables and decision tree. So it kind of shows that it's like about a 75% accuracy at predicting the, the the movie with a 62% AOC, which isn't too bad. It's fairly average though. Yeah, 75% when applied to real world solutions. Yeah, so then for K and N, uh, it went a little lower, went to point or 71%, almost 72%. The AUC is actually really small, so it actually doesn't have too much of a curve. So basically implies that it's not very good at detecting. You kind of want a more curvier, higher AOC. Then for logistic regression, this one had also around 72%, 754 again also. But then the probability when we predict to try to generate some probabilities, first movie can technically have a 75, and then the second could have a almost a 99% probability high score, but then you can see that some are really low, have a 50-50 chance and stuff. And with the random forest classifier, again a little higher, so it's 78%, which is pretty good. And then kind of like some important columns, uh, like num voted users, the critic reviews, gross, number of user views, and then cost of Facebook likes are important in detecting all that stuff. Granted, though, the other ones aren't too far behind, but these ones are pretty the highest. And clustering. Um, we did I did 4 clusters for mine, and so yeah, 4 clusters. Uh, Here we go. So profiling. So without between the clusters, there isn't a lot of none of the clusters are very close to each other on any of the columns. I think maybe this one was probably the closest, but other than that, they all have a very wide range of data, which means that most of them are pretty important. So yeah, right, and story time. So variables that I thought were predict and be sure, which is uh, obviously any vote. So voted users, critic reviews, and user reviews are definitely a good prediction. But gross was in there, and then so was budget. Those were I guess pretty important to detect whether a movie would have a high score and a success. And then recommendations is for make a good movie. Uh, I think the amount of money that is spent uh, is one that the amount of money that is spent is usually will get a higher score. More people will go see a more visually appealing movie. Uh, and then usually movies that have high scores will gross pretty high stuff. You also could have like director. A good director can give you a good score, but obviously the story is the main thing. So additional variables. I assume the protection is I wanted to know like the money amount spent on advertisement or marketing. That way you can see who's all seen it, because obviously scores are based on who's seen it, who's not. So if more people see it, then obviously they have a higher chance to get more money, but also have a bigger score, but also could be technically a lower score if more people see it. And then kind of like the score depending on the region, because like different regions like different movies. So like it might do very well in the United States, but might not do very well like over in China. So yeah, that's about it.